everyone, it's Jessica. Thank you so much for watching today. In today's project, I'm going to show you how I made this really fun shaker card. I just love this balloon thin cut here and the shaker element and that adorable little bunny who is floating through the sky. So to make this project, I am using two things. I've got the Stampin' Thin Cut set called Floating By, and then also the balloon thin cut, both from Close to My Heart. And they're not new, but they are still available, so I'll leave those linked below. Now, I didn't use the balloon on that stamp set because I didn't want to have this string part cutting out for my shaker card, so I went with the balloon thin cut instead. Now, additionally, I needed to pull a couple of pieces of paper here, so I've got this papaya pattern paper that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, a glacier piece of cardstock at 3 3/4 by 5, and a white piece of cardstock at 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. Plus, I've gone ahead and prepared some of my die cuts here. You can see I've got my bunny stamped and cut out, as well as 2 additional pieces on plain cardstock, a balloon ready to go, and then that balloon thin cut set does come with a tiny little bow, so I cut 2 of those out in glacier and honey butter cardstock. So one of the things I like to do with my die cuts is I like to stack them up on each other just to give them a chipboard type feel. So I'm going to go ahead and get my rabbit going here so he can dry, and then also that gives my intense black ink some time to really dry into that paper before I color him with markers. I'm going to prep my papers by using a little bit of ink distressing on the edges. I used a sponge for the papaya piece, but I'm going to go direct to paper with the glacier cardstock. So 2 different looks there, and I do like to use both when I am edge distressing my papers. But I'm going to set those to the side and then start working on creating the cutout for my shaker and then the stenciling of the clouds. So I'm grabbing that balloon and I'm just kind of playing around with the placement of where I want it to go. I want to make sure that I have some space to the top and the side there to have some foam tape behind this piece of white cardstock, so I don't want to put it too close to the edge. And then I already have those other 2 pieces cut out, so I can kind of use them as a guide to visualize where I want everything to go and how this is going to look. And once I know exactly where I want that balloon to go, I'm just going to grab a couple of pieces of washi tape and then tack that down and send it through my die cutting machine. So now we have that hole cut out, and that is going to form the window for the shaker. And then since we have this extra balloon that is cut out, rather than wasting it, I am just going to do that same trick where I stack up some of my die cuts. So I'm going to put it behind that peach colored balloon that I have already prepared. Okay, so I am using the cloud background here. I don't have the stencil, although there is one, but I just took the background die cut and I sent it through a piece of like scratch paper, and then I'm using that as kind of my own little homemade stencil. And I'm going to use some of the big clouds and some of the small ones, and I'm just kind of moving them around the front of this card. And I'm actually not applying a whole lot of ink. I am using Glacier, which goes on nice and light. I just want to have a little bit of a smudge of color back there because I will use the cloud stamp from that Stampin' Thin Cut set to add a couple more clouds on there. But you can see how these are just really light and kind of fun. Just a little something to take away from the starkness of that white panel. And then, like I said, I will stamp a couple of clouds, thinking about my visual triangles. I'm purposely kind of offsetting them from some of those stenciled clouds just to kind of fill in that panel a little bit more. Okay, so you will need some kind of acetate of some sort to create a shaker card. So I actually have this from, I got it at Joann's. It's just like a bunch of acetate pieces, but you could also use like some packaging or something like that and do a little bit of recycling and reusing from things you have around the house. But I'm going to flip that panel over and apply some double-sided tape all the way around that balloon cutout. And I just want to make sure that this is really going to stick tight. So that's why I used my double-sided tape rather than my tape runner. I just feel like it's a little bit stronger. And I didn't want to use liquid glue because I didn't want it to ooze onto my plastic window there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stick that to the back, and now we have a little balloon window in the front of our card. So the next thing I'm going to do is use my anti-static pouch to really go over that window and make sure that the sequins are not going to jump around too much on me. And then I will use some of my regular foam tape. I don't want to do the thin because I want to kind of build up a couple of layers of sequins in this balloon shaker. So I'm using regular foam tape, and I am just kind of creating like a box all the way around that balloon. I'm trying to keep it pretty tight to the shape of the balloon so that way the sequins don't fall below the window where the recipient will be able to see them. So just make sure that everything is entirely closed in so that your sequins cannot escape from that shaker window there. All right, and then I'm going to pour in a couple of silver stars here. These are so fun. I love how tiny they are. They do try to escape a little bit. That's why the anti-static powder helps quite a bit. And then also I'm using some of the loose silver sequins. So I am really kind of filling up this window quite full because I wanted to make sure that they were still going to be visible even when the card is standing up. Now, very carefully, I pulled all of the backings off of my foam tape there, trying really hard to make sure that my sequins weren't going to like jump out or stick to anything. I got a couple that tried to run away. But now you might be wondering, Jessica, how are you going to put this to your card because you've just created this little well of all of the sequins? Well, I know that this is going to be backed with some Glacier cardstock, so I'm just going to cut a little scrap square of Glacier in the same color and put it there, and then that way I don't have to worry. I can just kind of cover up that little window part, and then when I adhere this whole thing to my Glacier cardstock piece that I have prepared, you'll never know that it's not the same one that was backing it. So I found that to be an easy way to create a shaker card rather than trying to flip things upside down or figure out the alignment of everything. I just back it with a little piece of scrap paper. And I almost did forget to put it on my Glacier piece there, but so we'll kind of layer all of those up and keep them centered. And now we've got the basic front of the card ready to go. So we can work on the rabbit and the other balloon and then those cute tiny little bows. Okay, so I'm going to kind of offset that other balloon, which is cut out of peach cardstock. And then I will figure out about where I want that bunny rabbit to go. And then I'm going to hold him in place and then just using a black marker, draw some strings to hold those balloons all the way to his hand. And then I'm going to go back over them, just thicken them up just a tiny little bit. And then that way I can create my own strings. And that was why I used that balloon thin cut rather than the one that came with the stamp set, because I didn't want that to cut out for my shaker window. So just kind of combining a couple of things here. All right, and then these little bows, I will take the honey butter one and put it with the shaker window and the Glacier one with the peach balloon. Okay, I really used only 2 color of my tri-blend markers to color in the bunny. So I did the ice gray and then the pale pink. So I made sure to keep most of my dark shade of the gray color towards the bottom of my rabbit, because I imagine if he's floating from the sky, the sun is shining down on him, and so he's going to be lighter at the top. And then I just used the pale pink to kind of add a little bit of accents on his ears and then on his cheeks. Now for his tummy and his tail, they are white, but I didn't want them just to look uncolored. So I grabbed my clear shimmer brush and just put a little bit of sparkle in those 2 spots. And that was kind of a good way to like color him in without, changing the whiteness on that part of his body. So I'm going to glue him down and let him dry to the card front. And then all I need to do is put him onto the actual card base. And that is how fast this card came together. So I actually made this card kind of on accident because I had originally intended for it to be a graduation card. I was going to put 23 in that peach colored balloon. But then when I was done, it kind of looked, I don't know, maybe a little too juvenile for a high schooler. And so instead, in that other card that I showed at the beginning, it had the number 5 in it. I thought it would make a cute birthday card for my niece this summer. And there certainly are a lot of cute sentiments on that stamp set, and there is definitely room in that bottom right-hand corner. You can see I did stamp one on one of the cards. So lots of different options, ways that you can customize this project, but just a really fast and easy way to pull a shaker card together. And I don't know, that bunny just gets me every time. I think he is so adorable. Well, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've been inspired, and I will leave links to anything that is available in the description box down below. Thanks so much for watching. Happy crafting. Bye.